All right, let's get started. So welcome to Three Poets, Three Voices with Scott Hightower, John Keene, and Elaine Sexton. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum, of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. Should also welcome our audience out in cyberspace. So it's great to be here in person and online with you all. We've happily been doing in-person events again since about mid-February, so thanks for coming out. The Bureau, we like to say, is a government agency for a government that does not yet exist, and the main service that we provide is just holding this space for queer books and queer culture. So our regular bookstore hours are Wednesdays through Sunday from 1 to 7, and then we stay open late when we have events like this. And we have a very busy calendar through the end of Pride. So please check out our website and you can see our upcoming events. You can also sign up for our email list, which goes out every other Monday at the register, and you'll get those. So the Bureau is an all-volunteer agency, which means I'm going to pass the offering plate around. We have a suggested donation of $10, so give whatever you can. And if money is tight, please hold your money and buy a book if you want to do that. We much prefer that. But I'll pass that around. There's change in here if you need it. And I think that's it from me. So I am going to bring up Maya Mahmoud, who is a poet, an artist, a visual artist, and also the publicist for Elaine Sexton's Drive. So please give a warm welcome to Maya.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here this evening, and thank you for all of you who are tuning in on the live stream. Thank you for joining us in this celebration of 2 books and new work by 3 wonderful poets, Scott Hightower, Elaine Sexton, and John Keene. Thank you to the Bureau of General Services, Queer Division Bookstore for hosting this reading and providing a space that honors queer writers and artists. The first poet reading tonight is Scott Hightower. So Scott was actually my first introduction into the poetry world as my professor at NYU, and he is one of the most generous and encouraging mentors a young poet could have. He is full of energy, full of verve, and has just a boundless wonder about him that is completely infectious. Scott Hightower is the author of 4 books of poetry in the US and 2 bilingual collections published in Madrid from Den Vinier. A 3rd contracted contrito is forthcoming from Editores Editoras in Granada. He teaches at New York University Gallatin School of Individualized Studies. Please welcome Scott Hightower.
Now, what I know about Maya that you may not know is that she's a great poet. So if you get a chance to hear her read, you absolutely want to take advantage of it because she reads like an angel. That's right. A few things to say, I guess. Normally I write about international justice and Spanish Civil War and goings on in places. So it's a little odd tonight to be reading and not be reading about Ukraine and Putin, because I have written a lot of poems and have a lot to say about them, about Putin, certainly. But what I'm doing is a little different. As Maya mentioned, I've been working, I finished a book called Contracted Contrito, which is about the virus, and that's coming out now in the new year, out of press out of Granada. And what I've just been working on and finished, what I'm reading from tonight, is a trilogy that I've since written. I think some of you know I lost a partner about a year and 3 months ago. So my life has been going through a lot. And since then, I've actually managed to write this trilogy. It's sort of a Scott as Job has a conversation with God, sort of a messy, uncomfortable one-man Roman comedy in poetry. So what I'm going to do tonight is read you one poem from the first of those books, and then I'm going to read you 4 poems from the very end of the trilogy. Okay. The trilogy, there are 3 separate books, so I'm looking for a publisher. Anybody out there? Wax like I hear tonight. The first of the books is called Imperative Despair. The second book is called Love Denudes Us, and the third is Ode to Sorrow, like Cologne, Ode to Sorrow. I'm not going to have anything else to say. I'm going to read these just rapid shot right through. There's only one word that I'll give you because you may not know it. Sneezings is going to come at the very end of the reading, and it means sneezes. Okay. And thanks for all you guys out there showing interest in poetry. Very happy to have you too. Last privacy. Ancient kites found in deserts of the Middle East are constructions aimed at driving and trapping game animals. They consist of long, dry stone walls converging on a neck which opens into a confined space used as the killing floor. The last night, unknowingly, I lovingly effervesced the long catalog of my admirations for you into your ear. Hammer, strike anvil. The last morning I studied you sitting quietly, studying the water in the toilet bowl. I brushed your hair, gave you a kiss, told you I love you. Minutes later, we walked outside our door the final time, rode the elevator down together, crossed the lobby and vestibule, out the front door onto the wide sidewalk of our building. All the while, unaware of the drive, your last moments under a bluebird sky, your last moments standing at the end of the fatal kite. Darsan. There's a well-known book from Italy called The Divine Comedy. You well may have read it. Anyway, in it, Dante, the author, sticks his enemies in hell, the rings of hell, rings descending further and further away from the warmth and light of God. The last, deepest ring is inhabited by the deceivers, the people who have deliberately posed or contrived, turned their backs on what they know is right. The second ring, the higher ring, one of a much lower offense, is inhabited by people that have loved another person so much that they have neglected God, have turned their backs to him, a form of idolatry. It seems in God's eyes, at least according to Dante, in the scheme of things, to love someone so completely is a more easily forgivable offense. I, good sir, have decided that when I love, it will be complete, utterly consuming. I'm not a predator, a stalker, or a kook. I just am happiest living with another set of eyes, being able to reach out and touch another, though they be lost to sleep. Out of the shower. When your head is clamped in the guillotine, noose, an amorous fever, or the garden, and you hear the endearment I have finally found for you, you won't have to look around. You'll know who is calling. You have me so worked up tonight after being some banter and trying to read your voice discanted in the text feed, and you alluding to moments of anguish in history. All those folks in that inbox may be in your box, but sir, Are they all in your erotic imagination? Sad to be diminished, wanting what an old dog and two little girls and a couple of photographs are having. While a child in a video clip, confused and demoralized simply by what to do in a race. Your simple responding gestures are the expressions of a profoundly private decency, untrusting and adrift, tenderness in its innocuous, lonely, numbing jealousy. I'm never free, said the man who sits in his cell holding the key. I play for high stakes. I either get intimacy or I don't want the hole in the enchilada. I've already told you, the person who loves knowingly plays the weakest hand. Having already lost everything, I can afford to risk it all again. I don't know how good your Spanish is, but su simpatía, su ternera, aquí en las fotos, y el videoclip leaves me breathless and green with envy. Isn't there the 2-point warning? I guess up to the 2-point warning. You don't need to see. It's a very long last one. Yet, I want a trail companion, the one true God who you seem to seek beside the still water, actually dwells with me, talks to me. It is sort of like that pray without ceasing thing. He tells me since my wings have been taken away, I can only appear one place at a time. He tells me to knock and one day the door will open. Call in response. He knows my heart. He says the person on the inside needs to spit shine up a bit, to proclaim a little less and believe a little deeper. He continues to encourage me to profess that no man was designed to live alone. It is as old as Eve and the fish. Oh yeah, it was an apple, my bad. It is as old as brown gravy, as jelly on a biscuit, as runny as cheese on a burger, drizzled salt caramel dripping through the cream atop a clear cup of chocolate, as tangy as ranch dressing and ranch undressing. The sauce, the shiny blackened fish, its head hanging out onto the plate, pineapple juice, the dark stone cherry, and a serpent. There was a snake. And cake. He says the person on the inside needs to trust what God is sending. He also told me to tell you, don't bother to bathe. I am waiting. Punishing time. My literary influences, in case you haven't already figured them out, are the Book of Job, Robert Browning, who I studied a lot at college, Emily Dickinson. Robert Frost has a great poem called Lovely Shall Be Choosers. Those are the 4 big things that rumble underneath this whole trilogy. Punishing Time. An epigraph by Henri Cole. We live in an era when our humanness is worn down. What is it to be a citizen at a punishing time? What does it matter? Good morning, sir. A friend just texted that he is dropping by. He is in a great relationship, so don't get the wrong idea. He is dropping by to chat. He texted coffee or tea. Me, orange juice, please. He, egg on a bagel or roll. Me, whatever you're having. He, got it. Me, as I am back on the market, how about on a large penis, but only if they look fresh. I I have not shared with anyone anything about my online correspondence with you. If one wants the horse to stay in the barn, one has to see to it that the barn door is kept shut. As for the photograph of the boy with the two pigs, one in a cage, I'm the one alone in the cage. Please, sir, help me out. Quote, I am retreating from you for a while because I don't think you understand me. Unquote. I am lowering my voice. Turn up your speakers. I have survived a far larger retreat already this year. My capacity for understanding, already having been put through an ordeal, has recently vastly expanded. That said, my capacity remains a private matter, as I suspect and respect is yours. I will certainly concede I am not at my tip-top best these days. I am fortunate. The people who love me understand my erratic introversions and extroversions, and their tendernesses and kindnesses abide with me, take me as I am, sustain me. Their trusts and love exceed the mark. Likewise, they seem to believe that given time, my poetics, hindsight, insight, foresight, my observations will return to exceeding the mark. There's no greater cruelty or certitude than the manifestos and beratements dished out by moralists. Is there no escape for those of us who are not moralists? If I step up to a vista or walk into a room and leave the door opened, not everyone need follow, nor need an invitation be issued for everyone to do so. Love is sufficient unto itself. And so the world continues on. Sadly, it seems everywhere the moralists are sworn. Moralists can fight a fence with pretty much anything anyone expresses. And the imperfections and assignments that they make have absolutely nothing to do with our situation. Love denudes us. We each make our decisions to look outside ourselves, to open or close doors, to go or follow where others will not. Such are the invitations of our privacies. No, sir, truth doesn't take time. It is neither committed nor earned like a merit badge. It is issued, but not to last, like time, to pass through. Gifted, to discover the connection between the call and response takes but a second. The real subject for every photograph is the one taking the picture. The injustice is in the self-proclaimed high moral hand that flexes power, be the power real or imagined, in the voice that chastises or harshly berates. I'm familiar with cruelty and insecurity. Sir, I'm also familiar with rectitude and discipline. I know the difference. I'm also familiar with being made to feel free, safe, balanced, even prized, with helping others feel the same. I am fortunate in having been subjected to expressions of genuine kindness, tenderness. expressions of genuine affection. Go easy on me. Hardwired, both seeking the love of men, Adrienne Rich. Access to Eros is a bit complicated. And people figuring out what is and can be between them can be infinitely entangling, even in the best of circumstances. It gets into issues of self-possession and identity projection, compounded by being virtual, two bodies not in the same room, concealed, overexposed, perhaps on hyper display. And as quickly as the assignment is made, the roles reverse. Speakers and cameras are both the secure fence of joined together and the obstacle of separation to thrash against. Trust takes time. You said maybe one day you would be willing to meet me halfway. You said you separate primal drive from a more profound sense of shared intimacy, loyalties. Macho gay men overcompensating, even torturing themselves and others for the very thing they desire is ancient. What consumes your mind controls your body's life. I suppose you've shared more aspects of your gayness with me in the last few months than with anyone for some time. To your credit, you were quick and upfront in your sharing of a past affection. The other night, you shared 3 photographs of men peacocking. One was by water, one wore a turban, and a third really looked across the space between his eyes and the lens of a camera. Posing is oddly something you too effortlessly do. I suspect I occupy space few others, perhaps no one else, occupies right now. You know that, but are not comfortable with the assignment. I doubt that there are multiples like me in your inbox. There are no multiples of me. Then again, perhaps I have it all wrong. It doesn't really matter. Nothing need be forced. What's truly meant to be will be. The question I would have asked if you had not been so deliberate in your withdrawal the other night was the hinge to my parroting your question, why does it matter? I have responded. It matters to me. Does it matter to you? How many passionate, discreet leche factories are in that inbox? You don't need to be licking the fucking plastic lamp. You need to be licking me. Despise me, block me, erase me, do what you will, seek what you will. In some cases, choice is a struggle, but you are free. And dear sir, you are intact. Had to. For you, perhaps intimate time has been ancillary, an arbitrary convenience. For me, love is a sacred imperative, rest, a comfort point, a North Star. You have built your secure world to accommodate each day's demands, everything in its place, vision and balance, foresight. You have encountered me in a passing mess, a very near drowned dog, down, but not quite out. I am a near constant translation, a sulk, a frustrated collaboration, my bread back on the water, my breed back on the water, Ardor is grown into a skin, an obesity of grief, a reckless compromise, a ruthless faith, a pulled back arrow, eyes and an otherwise ambivalent face. Everything in futurity has had to survive change. It's almost dark now, but the flowers. Here, the differences are interesting, but the likenesses are more important. By his sneezings, a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. It is almost dark now, but the flowers of heaven, the angels, are not subject to daylight savings time. The beloved has arose. Blessed am I to behold a thing of exceeding focus, balance and faith, even sexy, quite marvelous, really, a thing of exceeding beauty. Last dark rose, speakers, and screens. I'll lick you tonight. I'll let you lick me. Your wound, my Troy. Taint. Do you know the word taint? Your wound is my wound. I am yours. You are mine.
Thank you so much, Scott. That was really beautiful. Yeah, I just want to like say something about the work that was really touching. The kind of like intimacies and politics of the heart that you portray, and it's sort of, yeah, it's just a really wonderful, beautiful read. So thank you so much. So our next poet is Elaine Sexton. Elaine is also my former poetry teacher at Sarah Lawrence and her private workshops at 2 Ratio. She is a phenomenal writer who embodies the free spirit of these poems. And now as her publicist, I won't try to just sell you the book, you know, it's obviously not why I'm here. But I do want to let you know that the poems in Drive really carry a striking language, with beautiful images at play that are made all the more visceral with Elaine's attention to color and sound in detail. And you'll hear all about it when she comes up and reads. So Elaine's new collection is Drive. It's recently published by Grid Books, just coming out this month. The work in this book has also appeared in 3 forthcoming anthologies: Tree Lines from Grayson Books, I Want to Be Loved by You by Milk and Honey Press, and Stronger Than Fear, the Cave Moon Press. Her book Causeway was a finalist for the R.G. Lord Publishing Triangle Award. She is a member of the National Book Critics Circle and teaches at Sarah Lawrence College Writing Institute. Please welcome Elaine Sexton.
So thank you so much, Maya, for that lovely introduction, and Scott for the beautiful poems. And Scott really, truly is an amazing, generous poet and a poetry matchmaker, as many of us know, and several of the people who are here tonight I know through Scott. So I want to also thank the bookstore. This is an amazing place, so Donnie and Greg. they've never said no to a reading. I don't know if it's just me, but they're just always receptive, always generous. It's just really a nice, wonderful space that you've cultivated, and they're celebrating their 10-year anniversary right now, right? Of being in this space. Also, I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's a full house here. I was really, I was thinking, given the pandemic, we have about 10 people here, but there's not an empty seat in the house. And there is many people in my life, many people who have contributed in some ways to this book. Some of one of the anthologist editors is here, Steve Massimilia. Anyway, I could go on, but it's just, I'm very grateful to everyone who showed up tonight, so thank you. So as Maya said, the title of my new book, which is a week old, Drive, and one of the people that are here tonight is my editor, Elizabeth Murphy, who I could not have asked for a more generous and thoughtful editor who's just taken such care with the book. So thank you for being here tonight. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in. I will say Drive, the title Drive has to do with, in several of the poems, especially ones I'll read tonight, take place in a car, but it's really about transportation, both public and private transportation. And that's, I sort of feel like poems are that also. So I'll just say that much and start here. And thank you everyone who are attending virtually. Self-portrait between the car and the sea. I think I'll stay blonde a while longer. Downshifting for the view today, the engine strains in first gear the way on foot my body climbing the last few steps does. You'd hear it too if the heart had a literal voice. Silently pulling for itself, the will wants the body to give it what it wants. How long will these parts last? I put off minding the flags lifting their faces. I watch sea lice flit from shell to sand to beach, eased by transition lenses. This next poem, the title is Caper, and it's referring to the adventure, not the little salty little berry that you put in the salad. Caper. When I am an eraser, I can do anything. Mistakes may be made with impunity. I write as though paper will never be priceless. It crumples and springs back. The invention of the pencil protects me from permanency and practicality. Ideas are not commitments. This jawline may be drawn smooth, not cracked, to receive a caress. I draw shade, and under it a neck, shoulders. I dream this to be me, that dreams matter. If I can be my dream and live it too, so can you. So the title of the poem, Drive, is something I drafted when I was, I grew up on the coast of New Hampshire, a little town on the coast of New Hampshire, and I lived in New York City for the most part. And there was a time when my brother was gravely ill, and I was driving home to New Hampshire and also driving home to New York. And being in that middle space, I was always, this poem takes place in that space. And when I refer to this and here, you recognize it more reading it on the page, I'm referring to that space. Drive. My tiny car's tiny engine groans and hums the way my mother hummed a little ditty when nervous, the way I do, mulling over something hard, letting my chest send a message to my mouth forming a kind of growl, while all along staying shut. I enter the on-ramp to the freeway heading home from a family visit, the pedal to the floor. I pump my chin toward the dashboard, thinking I'm helping. I think I hear my brother's taunt. What is it with women and cars? We are old enough to equate mobility with independence. Real wheels take me out of state, escaping the trap I thought was the small town. For this, I left the ocean, I left trees, I left eel pond and seabirds standing on spring ice, summer surfboards lined up on the berm between the seagrass and the sea. I left my family of origin, my lucky buried in the backyard, dog heaven, now home to a chalet built by strangers, the chicken coop, the barn gone. When driving, I think of love as a road trip, the soaring, the breakdown, jump starts, the brand new and old reliable. I'm no mechanic, though I once knew how to change a fan belt sheared to a thread. Here, the air is fresh. The new mutt who travels with me leaves her nose prints on the passenger windows the way my old dog did, leaving a spot just clear enough to drive through. So I'm thinking about that obesity of grief that Scott referred to in one of the last poems. And so I lost the brother who I was visiting and a very dear friend back to back the same year. So this first poem is dedicated to my friend Tom Mohan. And the title is Sky Burial. I'm pinching a little from the sky every day, dawn to dusk. Dug in the dirt, the bulbs, weeds, stems, stamen dust staining, seed their cumulus way. There is always the air. I brush the mud from my shirt, clip the dead and dying dahlias. Your shirt, your dahlias. Dead, you keep what you wanted to back. That desire is everywhere. The sky has her say now that you're dust, now that you've come apart. Now we're turning the page opposite that, my brother. My dead brother returns as the old man in the sea surfing. The waves change, but always change in the same way. My brother will always be a comma in a sea of commas, a pause in the loose language of waves seen from shore. He will always be too far away to read, as close as the salt on my skin is, like his skin, that dries and flakes and shadows him. Right, let's see if we can come up with something cheerful to. Right, this is the first poem in the book, and it's dedicated to my friend Heather Sellers, who's a frequent writing partner. The title is This. In the way your poem with a lake in it is not about the lake, mine with a dog and the broken heart is not about a dog or saving face. Your ibis as pearls in their nests is no more about the sway of banyan trees than it is about lovers and brothers or fathers living among the cedars and scat in my poems, nor those pyres by the tracks waiting for a match. All queerly remembered, queer as teaching ourselves not to drown, or of clouds that don't move, what seahawks carry in their talons, the long dirt road, the navel of the moon. All poems about storms at sea combined are not about the earth's proclivities, but deciding what spins. Everything is about gravity, the grave pulling for us. Each day it starts with a bark calling our name. Everybody okay out there? Exhale. Okay, this poem, say a little bit about this poem, Landscape with Power Lines. My wife and I moved into a new house 5 years ago, and it was a beautiful tree farm across the street and just a lot of green. And the very first morning I woke up and I looked out the window and all I could see were these thick black power lines going through the trees. And I was like, yeah. And so like almost immediately I had to accommodate. I decided there is a deep-seated Pollyanna in me after all, which I had lost until I wrote this poem again. Landscape with Power Lines. The twisting chords no longer bother me. As I see it, they heighten the light, halved and halved again, leaves and clouds, snow and storm. The breeze moves an olive branch over one line, then another below. Each branch acts as if her leaves aren't about to be swayed, to stay on one side for good. They remain undecided. Today, they are subject to a dust kicked up as a truck hauling crops powers past. Birds make their wild plans to nest one last time. They weave their sticks and tissue their housing, including these lines. We are bound to live together. So at one point I was writing this series of poems, little prose poems that have as their center, or often at the very first line, the most beautiful thing about X is X. I was hoping in unexpected ways. And I wrote like dozens of them. Only 3 survive and they're in this book. So this is one of them. Ride. The most beautiful thing about a convertible is hair. The most beautiful thing about hair is its disposition. Dead, but alive in the skin, in the air. The skin holding on to each strand for dear life, alive in the wind. The most beautiful thing about the wind passing over the skin is sensation, cellular, invisible, metabolic. What is metabolic is life-sustaining. And the most life-sustaining thing I can think of today is decency. And decency is blind, unseen, until it isn't. Now there must be a happy poem here. Okay, this one might be. Okay, so this poem kind of harkens back to the drawing poem. I was at a writing residency or retreat really in the south of France, and the closest airport was Barcelona, and I rented a car and drove through Spain and into France, not speaking Spanish or French. And that place, so the title of this poem is Non-Place. And the French philosopher Marc Auger coined this phrase referring to a place that is of so little significance it has no name. And that also refers back to, I think, to that space when you were transported in one way or another. Okay, non-place. That spring before I met you, I found myself in a tiny white rental car with a moonroof and stick shift in a country where I didn't speak the language, on a roadway whose names and numbers didn't match my Baedeker, nor the quaint idea to bring a map that belonged to my father, who died young. And I could swear he joined me skirting the foothills we explored decades earlier on a family trip in an American Oldsmobile abroad, though I have no way to prove we drove this same route. Maybe the past is not the best way to navigate. So strong the impulse to make place personal. But this was it, my non-place, the off hours, days alone, my body blessed with little significance, without lover, without friends, no family, nor possibility of conversation. So little familiar, even the gas pump presented a craving for intelligence, a marker coming and going, craving and caving, heaven on earth, coming and for God's sake, going. Okay, so I'm going to close with this poem, which is the epigraph to the book, and it's another one of those poems that I referred to that I thought was going to be a whole book. It's all in this one poem, actually. And thank you everybody again for coming. The most beautiful thing about my car is the beach. And the most beautiful thing about the beach is watercolor. And the most beautiful thing about water is the word. And the most beautiful thing about the word is pigment. And the most beautiful thing about pigment is the soil. And the most beautiful thing about soil is the earth. And the most beautiful thing about the earth is the sea. And the most beautiful thing about the sea is the drive.
Thank you, Elaine. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing the book. So our last poet this evening is John Keene. So John, in his enigmatic writer, so adept at expressing the depth of human connections that pass in these fleeting gestures. He is the author of a new book of poetry, Punk's New and Selected Poems, recently published by the Song Cave last December, and has written several other works of poetry, fiction, and translations. John Keene is a 2022 Lambda Lit Award finalist and the recipient of numerous honors, most notably a MacArthur Genius Award, Windham-Campbell Prize, and a Lannan Award for fiction. A graduate fellow of the Cave Canem Writers Workshop, he teaches and chairs at Rutgers University-Newark. Please welcome John Keene.
Great to see such a full audience. So good evening and happy Earth Day. Again, it's Earth Day. And many thanks. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Maya, for that beautiful introduction. And many thanks to Elaine and Scott for your amazing readings. Thanks so much to the Bureau and so much to Song Cave for publishing Punks. They did an incalculable, wonderful thing for me in publishing this book. And many thanks to everyone who's here and to people watching online tonight. I also want to say that my book launch was here a few months ago, virtually, so it's wonderful to be here in person. I mean, it almost feels kind of unreal. And I want to dedicate this reading to my late friend, Ella Turen, who among her many bounteous gifts, she was being an amazing poet. So I'm going to start with a Friday poem. It's kind of just strange that I check a Friday poem, but it's Friday, so why not? It's Friday, right? These days all blur in pandemic time. Okay. Postcard decadence. It's Friday. How about a little decadence? Rent paid, food bought. I can spare you a drink more than you think I can. We pay for the shots and leave the bar, hands in each other's pockets. Your thigh under mine as we drive, half expecting spring twilight to call us out. Under the candy factory's sweet rain, I devour the funk in your ears, your neck still steeping in verbena. Does the newness of you make the darkness gleam more greedily? Supine, we smolder together like two freshly tossed cigarettes. I am burning as free as I want to be. Another poem along those lines. I think probably younger generations of people may not think of gay bars as important, gay and lesbian bars, but once upon a time they were incredibly important spaces, and this is one that existed in Boston. The Haymarket. The Haymarket no longer slings back rock gut G and T's before 2 a.m. as the doors close. These days, like the Napoleon, Sporters, Bohemian, the Zone itself, it's a monument to pure memory, but it was already dying the evening we went to hear Jennifer Holliday wail, "And I'm telling you," and jointly remarked how far she'd fallen since the Kilimanjaro of Dreamgirls. Reconnecting with her audience base is one way of putting it, and she missed not a single note, hunched over that microphone, song after song, sweating through her spangles like a dock worker as men slid to and fro in shade in front of the box stage. That was the night you tore out my throat over my words with an ex, whom you hurled from your car years before when you first encountered his tales of woe, whom I later observed sneak out of Keller's to avoid a Brooklyn ass whooping. I wanted to remember that as the night 2 drag queens tall as Masai threw down in front of the dumpsters, hurling pumps and wigs like gladiators, and a carnival-sized crowd swelled the lot, pacing the glass, chatting, cruising, watching the battle as Warren offered play-by-play, knowing the full tea, and Johnny offered up beauty in a snaggle grin, and Slender Darrell, laughing a cap over his velvety brow, reintroduced himself to me who hadn't yet moved into Love's house with you. But that melee too occurred summers before, when that club still felt new as a gift, alive, dangerous, though not as bad as they'd warned us. And every man met I recalled by name and face, half believing I'd never see them again because they disappear into wrong numbers, conceived on the spot, or ragged married lives, or the shadows that only grew rattier in the club's corners when you drank too much or danced too much, or learned that someone else you liked and hoped to hook up with had passed, and you stepped outside without a ride and missed the tea, knowing no taxis were going to ferry you all the way back to Western Avenue for less than $10 in that indifferent midnight Boston rain. No, of course, $10 more. A taxi would be a miracle, right? Okay. An elegy. Elegy, Boston. So I lived in Boston for about 10 years, Boston, Cambridge. So a number of these poems are set in Boston, some in New York. Elegy, Boston. August, one of those evenings, I walked a long way home, over the Harvard Bridge, your image dissolving sweetly like a lozenge on my tongue. This friendship, I reminded myself, is everything but wrong. In like with, not in love with, you. I already had somebody. What else is there to do? Suffer and let the river air it out. Like a spectator, I hovered at the balustrade, waiting for an early evening regatta, bright sails, black keels cutting beneath the railing, turning me from my yearning, stealing my reeling mind. Below, breezes herringbone the rusty water, rush hour traffic nodded behind me at the center of the bridge. These and other observations I jotted in my journal, remembering your dark fingers around my own like riggings are calls, brief torrents anchoring my afternoons. Can I think through your absence now in words as ungainly as these? Institute, 364.4 smoots, abandoned band shell, deleted emails, KS, a cyclovir. That night I stalled, not wanting to reach Boylston, buy books and wine and candy and circle like a gull above feeling. I stood there as I sit here now watching the red brick beacons beckoning, red brick beacons beckoning, dimming like all desires and lost itself to mere horizon. This is another poem of youth, the 1980s. In the warm room, in the warm sunlit room, talking of brotherhood. We sit in the warm sunlit living room all afternoon, talking of brotherhood, how solidarity will arm us in the struggle against racism, homophobia, and AIDS, or we need to come together. Come together, someone repeats to another round of Snickers. Our eyes glide from face to face, lap to lap. That one's my type, I think, but so's that brother. And that one. It'll be years before Chuck leads me through the love exercise and I can say, I love you to a man who is not my partner and mean it. Now I rifle through the papers in my hands, realizing I'm the youngest in the room, or almost youngest, which is currency. Not exactly beautiful, but close enough. Someone's eyes are on me, several others are. My bodybuilder friend V, who's West Indian, who I thought was in love with my Haitian friend, the freckled brother who he brought with him. Now I feel several others' glances, gazes. We're exploring the impact of AIDS on our lives. I want to impress them with how much I know, but realize that by comparison, my experience is not worth a whisper, that I should listen and take it all in. Instead, I nod coyly at the comments of the man with nostrils like arrows and a crotch too many have surrendered their dignity over. Does he have an interest in me? He doesn't, but what about that brother? Oh, nights of wanton youth, desire easier than rolling paper to light and burn through. I flip through my mental calendar to see when I could fit them in, then volunteer to collect this month's dues and contributions in my left pocket, phone numbers in my right. I said, where people? Wow, it's supposed to be fine. I'm saying. Let's see. This was a poem. I haven't said a lot about that, introduced a lot of these poems, but let me see if I can find this. Okay, this is a poem I actually rewrote. I wrote when years ago when my partner and I, our first took a trip to Europe, and we used to be able to. And this seems almost unreal now, but we used to be able to fly on these courier flights. And some of you may remember this, okay? And you would sign up for it. You pay like I think it's $125 or something. Let's see. And then they would tell you, okay, when you get to Kennedy Airport, or whatever, I think it was Kennedy. When you get to Kennedy Airport, you got to look for Veronique. And Veronique is going to give you your tickets to Stuttgart, right? So we're like, okay, we're going to go to Stuttgart, okay. But when we got to Kennedy, Veronique was there. And she said, "You're not going to Stuttgart. You're going to Paris, right?" So we ended up going to Paris, right? And we said, well, should we go north or should we go south? So we went south, and so we went from France into Spain and Portugal. And I don't know, Spain used to have this terrifying train called the Talgo, which was super slow, and it was basically an experience in itself. But anyway, so this is a Barcelona. Okay, it's Tu no lo recuerdas, and the quote is by the British writer Nicholas Mosley. Is it you? Is it you? Atocha together, wearing the gaze of a spectator who has just seen nights, swifts crisscrossing the square with a white-stockinged woman moaning athletically, palms upturned, all together now as presence itself with both eyes one motion, and offer these words, and from my little, because of 6 tiny English flags before a bracing Spanish wind. Yet our language has a different way of demonstrating presence, a third. But would you like to, as a gift, petite, weighing no more than a rabbit's foot and silken to the throat, manifest itself, yes, that token later stroked me on my windbreaker sleeve as we sat studying the television like this, a show horse. How much did that cost? Because he was willing to pay for what they valued from Massachusetts and so forth, a state just north of essence itself, taken by numbers. Afterwards, pale haze rode the restaurant tables where the Africans, in theory, a deferral, and that one, the others, tires, India ink, the declaration rudely stamped on your passport was from the older sector of the city near the port and graffitied seawall, forgotten, my little nothings. Another on the far side of the bar were drinking an expensive sherry, nattering on about, smoking, yes, deeper, please, until he torn it, still apart. In the pensions lobby, 2 Iranian businessmen pursued, paced, ogled, anticipated, the next one marked with a blue stain or birthmark in Catalan, when he kissed my forearm as we lay, ignoring the television. I was willing, bound, not spent, past that, because of what's left. Yet another from the provinces and his brother, hungrier, extending his filthy penis, whispering, receive this, ready, or whatsoever you do not remember, beneath the shadowed light dawn, whatever burns within it, release not paid for, the sullen end of Bent over the edge of the bed, I stumbled and slid, my fingers groping between the sound itself, open window from which the narrow street descending was completely what the guidebook implied, and all that you were leaving, rambles, my little forgetting, improvisation, nothing lost, took notes, decided to return in a few years when the figure itself in two parts, one motion, listen, traces, mouth open, palms upturned, professed these words, hurry now, the train, pregnant with refugees, is departing. Just a few more. So there are several poems in this book. There's a section actually in this book of poems that I wrote collaboratively with a poet named Cynthia Gray. We never met in person. We communicated via email and we wrote these poems together. And I don't think I ever had a chance to, or maybe I did once read them while she was still alive. She passed away. So I was very honored that her parents agreed to allow these poems to appear in this book. So this is called Water. Water. I'm a firm believer in the inefficiency of flowers, all colors that you offer, a paradise I cannot hold. Bring me water also, not as words, but water, a treasure, cold as silence, my empty palms, reward. If nothing more remakes us, speak only of these memories, the shadows of that laughter in a chilly room. Recall the lilies you gave me, silk-banded, pale as whispers, their vermilion garlands circling your sleeves. Recall all that I told you, each word a seed of forgiveness, each syllable a promise I could say no more, quiet as I choose to leave now, quietly as this bowl of petals casting swans of sunlight across the sleeping wall. So, okay. And, two more. And this one is, so you'll get the very quickly what the, find it here, what the principle is. Okay. Mirror. Does it rhyme with other? Does it rhyme with habit? Does it rhyme with dare? Does it rhyme with present? Does it rhyme with duty? Does it rhyme with ragged? Does it rhyme with ramming? Does it rhyme with swagger? Does it rhyme with luck? Does it rhyme with strife? Does it rhyme with lack? Does it rhyme with lunk? Junk. Does it rhyme with cruel? Does it rhyme with jolly? Does it rhyme with spunky? Does it rhyme with mean? Does it rhyme with stark? Does it rhyme with peachy? Does it rhyme with tacky? Does it rhyme with candy? Does it rhyme with crave? Does it rhyme with proof? Does it rhyme with thwart? Does it rhyme with mute? Does it rhyme with slur? Does it rhyme with prissy? Does it rhyme with star maybe? Does it rhyme with fear? Does it rhyme with starky? Does it rhyme with wary? Does it rhyme with fluke? Does it rhyme with scary? Does it rhyme with binge? Does it rhyme with trollish? Does it rhyme with wrong? Does it rhyme with push? Does it rhyme with blade? Does it rhyme with crappy? Does it rhyme with big? Does it rhyme with shade? Does it rhyme with rape? Does it rhyme with weasel? Does it rhyme with boogie? Does it rhyme with wool? Does it rhyme with swine? Does it rhyme with stray? Does it rhyme with gaffer? Does it rhyme with lie? Does it rhyme with hole? Does it rhyme with flag? Does it rhyme with slum, new slum? Does it rhyme with nag? Does it rhyme with floss thread? Does it rhyme with dish? Does it rhyme with bomb? Does it rhyme with natty? Does it rhyme with stiletto? Does it rhyme with crow? Does it rhyme with trigger? Does it rhyme with slow-mo? Does it rhyme with loss? Does it rhyme with glitch? Does it rhyme with dropsy? Does it rhyme with fancy? Does it rhyme with near? Does it rhyme with brack? Does it rhyme with phony? It rhymes with funny. And I'll end with this poem. It's called Pulse, and is a tribute to, in part to the people who I will be writing about, but also thanks to my editors here, Alan Felsenthal. I asked him, I said, Alan, is this poem okay? You didn't, you said it's okay. So thank you. No. Pulse. For the 49 murdered and 53 wounded at the Pulse nightclub, Orlando, Florida, June 12, 2016. And I feel like this poem is also particularly appropriate for our current moment when we see a lot of the right-wing attacks. I mean, they're getting more and more extreme on LGBTQ people, Black and other BIPOC people, women, immigrants, refugees, and so on. So I think this is also a tribute broader tribute as well. Pulse. We're the quiet street, hours before doors open. We are the first words and the parting ones. We are the cologne and perfume selected for tonight alone. We are the fragrance of soap, Vaseline, shea butter. We are the pressed polos and tees, the freshly laced kicks. We are the pants just out of the dryer, the sweater that fits. We are the glances, the stares, the winks. We are the close cut, the Caesar and tight fade. We are the crucifix beads and cowrie shells. We are the knockoff watch and the 14-karat chain. We are the cordon and the gathering line. We are the sachet and the strut and the swagger. We are the foundation, mascara and blush. We are the eye blink, the heartbeat, the hush. We are the oil glistening in locks, ponytails, and froze. We are the piercings from eyebrows to tongues, to noses. We are the mouth spray, the breath mints, the gum. We are the bustier, the suspenders, the garters. We are the shades that never come off. We are the pocket scrap or the rolling paper packet. We are the X, the weed, the snowy trail. We are the bitter beer, fizzy soda, and sweet cocktail. We are the chairs rearranged to open the floor. We are the sweaty brows, the half-hidden tears. We are the gleam of smartphone screens. We are the small talk, the banter, the laughter. We are the claps and the clapbacks. We are the wigs on too tight or just right. We are the improvised steps, the smoothest moves. We are the dances that precede the groove. We are the cruised stare and icy glare. We are the kikis and air kisses and shade. We are the gossip that cannot wait to be told. We are the static, bass, and reverb. We are the heat rising off of bodies, nearing, touching. We are the beat that slides beneath the beat. We are the fallen lash, the broken heel, the belt cinched tight. We are the proposal for a lifetime, few minutes, or the night. We are the breath held to the end of the evening. We are the closing doors, the bolted locks. We are the silence that always remembers. We are the song that never ends. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For joining us. Those were amazing poems. All of you, Scott, John, Elaine, thank you so much, everyone who came out tonight, everyone who's on the live stream. This was such a wonderful reading. And yeah, that's it. Everyone, have a good night.
All right, thanks, everybody. We have books available at the register and all around the room. So hang out.